two major issues within the past 2 weeks. One is that the Cabinet Secretary for Industry and Trade, Moses Kuria, came out to say that businesses, or he has instructed that his permanent secretary drafts, or his principal secretary drafts a law or drafts a proposition within the next 30 days, which will make it mandatory for any registered business in Kenya to be under the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And as I told you last week, the registration for that particular membership is 50,000 Kenyan shillings, which is an annual rate. Now, there are approximately 1.5 million registered business in Kenya, ranging from small enterprises to large multinational. How will this pan out once it becomes law is something that businesses are waiting on with bated breath. Apart from that, there was a very comical or animated press conference that was done that is regards the housing levy. In between pushing off glasses of water off the podium in the course of his animated speech, and also his proclamation such as Nyinyi hamuelewi hii kitu, PS Charles Hinga came out to defend vehemently the housing levy proposal from the president himself. 3% of this return on our savings, because we'll have access to the employer's contribution as well as to what every single Kenyan will be supposedly contributing to that housing levy. So those are the two issues which have been rocking the Republic as of the moment. And I'm going to just quickly go through what you can expect in the finance bill if it goes into effect as of July 2023. Remember, that is going to affect your payslip as according to what the propositions are looking like. And the president is very adamant in the implementation of this finance bill of 2023. Tough times ahead and pain, even more pain for hustlers. Now, our draft notes here on the key takeaways from the finance bill of 2023 show a couple of things which you should be taking a note of, but I'll be going through them in phases. So I'll say some of them here now, and then later on during the show, we'll be getting back to it, and then also taking a look at your reactions. Turnover tax. Turnover tax bands move from a band of 1 million Kenyan shillings to 50 million, 1 million, between 1 million to 50 million, to a band of 500,000 to 15 million. And the rate has been increased from 1% to 3%. Digital assets will be subject to a tax of 3% of the transfer exchange value of that digital asset. So those digital assets are also a conversation that we've been trying to have here. Quite confusing for the government in trying to implement taxation on digital assets and also trying to regulate the implementation of some of these digital assets like NFTs and crypto. Content creators are now going to be required to pay a 15% withholding tax. 15% withholding tax on income that is earned by digital content creators. Per diem, employees per diem and mileage at AA rates is going to be tax-free. Betting and gaming companies, of course, as we already spoke, daily payments of excise duty by betting companies is in this bill as well. Commissioners are going to get the power to gazette daily payment of taxes for any sector. VAT-related LPG and fertilizer inputs are now VAT exempt. Exportation of taxable services for business processing is now VAT exempt as well. VAT on fuel to go up from 8% to 16%, so more pain at the pump for the hustler. VAT on fuel to go up 8% to 16%. Excise duty charges, 15% on print, TV, billboard and radio ads on betting or lotteries or alcohol. 5% on wigs, false beards, eyebrows, eyelashes, artificial nails, and human hair. It's going to be expensive to be beautiful in this republic. Mobile money transfers up from 12% to 15%. Bank fees and money transfers are down to 15% from 20%. Down to 15% from 20%. I just wanted to read here something. As Juliet poetically gushed to Romeo in the famous Shakespearean play, a rose by any other name will smell just as sweet. And I say so today, a tax by any other name smells as bad. Good luck to all of us. It is now a full-time job to be a Kenyan. Welcome to Biashara Tuesday. This is the show where we get to discuss matters of business, technology, and everything in between. We'll be having guests as well here this morning. I'll be giving you that information in just a short while. The conversation that's still happening is on mental health awareness. This is May 30th, The month has 2 days to go. The conversation on mental health is important for us, and the care for those guys who are going through mental health issues is also a very important discussion happening here on the show. So tweet us out at KUTV Kenya. Use the hashtag Biashara Tuesday, hashtag Rise Today. I'll be able to see your feedback there. But you can tag me on my personal handles at Richard_OKENYE, and I'll be able to see that. Right about now, going out to the roads to see what is happening, current transport and traffic conditions in Nairobi City. If you're outside Nairobi also, give us that information. We'll be glad to relay it to the rest of the audience. My name is Richard OKENYE. Welcome to the show.
That money talk, nigga. That money talk. Bullshit walk. That money talk. That money talk. That money talk. That money talk. You tryna get that money, say no more.
This is what is happening on your roads. The illegal U-turns on Mbagathi Way between the Memorial Hospital and entrance to Kenyatta Market are becoming way too many. And there is this disaster that's waiting to happen. That is according to Kaya Kega. Kaya Kega, what is the disaster that's waiting to happen because of those too many turns? Please do tell us. It's looking bad on the Nyahururu Nyeri Road. It's foggy, so if you're coming from those sides, drive carefully. The visibility is not at its best this morning. Female conductor threw out a female passenger for delaying to pay fare. This was last week. Do you feel a male conductor will have treated her differently? And Ma 3 is, how should conductors treat such issues? So that's something that you could respond to there. A question by a Kenyan, Maji Kenya. Mumias, kuna BRTs, I'm informed here. There's an 80 plus carrier. This is a plus 80 carrier I'm seeing here on the timeline by one Matatu Sacco called TCB Sacco. There's a BRT in Mumias, and on Thika Road, the progress is a bit stalled. So we don't know how that's going to fare, but if you're in Mumias, tuambie if this is true or maizi ni zile story fulani. Accident near Chiromo Junction from town. Pedestrian knocked down and is dead, unfortunately. So approach with caution. NPS officials, please do respond to that. And thank you, Vincent Awange, for that feedback. Traffic ya Jogoo Road huwa hectic kama vile iko saizi asubuhi, so drive carefully over there. Kura Roads, kindly consider closing the poorly built U-turn on Eastern Bypass a few meters after that railway overpass. There's not enough space for vehicles to negotiate while changing directions. So Eastern Bypass, the worst built road in Nairobi, and that's that is based on my personal experience. I don't know wale watu wa Eastern Bypass how you are able to use it every morning, but relevant authorities, please do respond to that. Here, there's also more feedback from Westlands. An accident from yesternight. It looks like there's also an accident this morning. Again, Chiromo Junction from town, a pedestrian knockdown. Please do approach carefully. No updates from Thika Road, so I'm going to assume things are looking good there, but if that's not the case, inform us. We'll be able to see that as the show goes on. Now, as I go for this break, I'm coming back with 2 guests, and then I'll be informing you on exactly the conversation that's happening here. Continuum of care, which is a concept used in healthcare to describe a coordinated and seamless system of services that are provided to individuals as they progress through different stages or levels of care. And this is important as well for guys who are facing mental health challenges. How are we going to already, of course, help this, since this is Mental Health Awareness Month and this month of May? That's the conversation that's happening all across the airwaves and also in social and work settings. So don't go too far. We'll be coming back with that. I'll tell you who I'm having this discussion with, so check out for that. With me this morning will be Reverend Dr. Davis Galtua. He's a counseling psychologist and lecturer at Kenyatta University. Accompanying him is Dr. Susan Hinga. I'm sure she's not a new face here on the show, but she's also a consultant psychiatrist and lecturer at Kenyatta University. The conversation is comprehensive continuum of care. The goal of continuum care is to provide holistic approach to healthcare that addresses the comprehensive needs of the individual. And the questions we are asking this morning to these two doctors on the show with us is how exactly or what exactly is holistic care and how can you get ahead of it? What are the dimensions of holistic care? And what are the treatment options? If you have someone who requires this, how do you approach this? If you're someone who needs this, how do you approach it yourself? Tweet us out if you have any questions in regards to that at KUTV Kenya. We're also streaming live on our YouTube at KUTV Kenya Live. So if you're going out and away from your television sets, you should be able to follow through with the show. Leave your comments there. Interact with the rest of the fans. I'll be reading it as I go on. Don't go too far. I'm coming back with the two doctors. This is going to be an exciting conversation.
Are you an aspiring media practitioner, a graduate, or you just want to advance your skills in television production? Then welcome to Kenyatta University, where education meets innovation. KUTV, the premier university television station in Kenya, is now offering short courses in TV studio, field technical operations, and video editing. Through these courses, you will acquire hands-on skills on camera operations, media production, lighting techniques, audiovisual editing, and sound and visual control, and how to operate key equipment in modern TV control room. Enroll today at KUTV and discover your full potential in cutting-edge TV broadcasting. Graduates of these courses will receive professional certificates. For more information, visit our offices at KUTV Studios or call us on 020-870-4252 or 020-870-4255 or SMS us on 0739-110-544. KUTV, a new experience.
We are all seeing the impacts of climate change. In Kenya, for example, the frequency of the floods is becoming more and worse. The amount of people and livestock we're losing.
The level we need to go is the level where the normal mwananchi and also the government stakeholders can uptake these solutions.
Those small acts multiplied by millions of us will help make a difference in the world at the end of the day.
It's just a slight behavior change that we need, and you'll find that it serves us a bit more than you put in. And that's the goal. We want to live a better world than we found. Because at the rate we are going, it's dire.
We will secure the planet for future generations.
What's up, fashionistas? Looking for a show that brings you the latest in the world of fashion, glamour, creativity, and style? Fashion Diaries got you sorted as we explore street fashion, modeling, runways, red carpet events, and so much more.
Catch me, Ashley Asachi, as we unlock the greatest fashion events. Keep it locked.
Access to knowledge, solution to
accessing your property, intellectual or material.
This and more only on Law Matters.
Kipindi hewani ni mitindo ya kipwani. Kama ilivyo kipindi hiki kinahusu nyimbo za tarab, chakacha, midwara, midundiko, bila kusahau mapishi. Ambao ndio uti wa mgongo wa pwani ya Afrika Mashariki.
Jamani swaibu zangu mliopo maskani, hatuonani wenzangu, najua mwanitamani.
Hapa KUTV, nahodha mwendesha chombo cha baharini, yani ua linalunukia na kuvutia waridi tamu.
Hello everybody, I'm Nena. And I'm Gigi. Welcome to Engine Season 2. The place to find out about the world we live in and the creatures that we share our planet with. Join us on the most exciting adventures across the African continent. See breathtaking wildlife, stunning landscapes, and out of this world technologies. Meet incredible scientists and learn fantastic facts. Explore, discover, be amazed. Be part of the next generation of African change makers. Be a part of Engine, Africa's #1 science discovery program. Yay!
We're learning every day. Let's go! Engine leads the way.
Technology, science, innovation, ICT and research. These are the ingredients upon which the solutions to the 21st century problems are founded. In a world that is rapidly changing, it's all hands on deck to ensure a balance in all fields of life. Women, young and old, are also in the front line, breaking the glass ceiling, becoming thought leaders in the larger tech space. Not forgetting other societies marginalized. And when the tech Avengers come together, we inch closer to a much safer, efficient, and sustainable world. What we view as a norm in today's advanced world was just an idea, and for nostalgic reasons, we trace back to the iconic days to bring you the retro tech. On Technovation Show, we encapsulate all the pillars of the fourth industrial revolution, decoded in a language, all for one for all. Every Monday at 8:30 as we push the mantra, keep learning something new each and every day. Only on KUTV, a new experience.
What are some of the ways through which you can develop these skills so that you are comfortably fitting into the job?
You have to put yourself in positions where you are uncomfortable in the sense that you are not clear about what to do.
Because I used to work a corporate job before. So when I left, I happened to visit someone's farm around this area.
So this project is called Security Breach Detector and Readiness Familiarize. It is meant to be used to detect, detonate explosives.
We'll tackle all the tough issues, discuss all the weird moments, and hopefully share a few laughs along the way.
First time?
Yeah, I'm kind of scared, but I can do this.
Yeah.
Mess with me. Yeah, let's do this, man.
to the Church O'Clock Show. I'm your host, Esther Becky.
And my name is DJ Teros.
We start you off with a word of prayer and get you started with a live transformational worship experience. And have our minds renewed by the word of God on the word segment.
And not forgetting new music za hii wiki, yani ndakuwa bado nawapatia pale wasanii wamekuwa kiwakali. So make sure manzo tune in because zitakuwa zina flow pia pale mixes kwa wingi, yani zitakuwa zina come through, and pia performance yani from our gospel artist hapa on Gospel Arts
from 7 to
10 a.m. only on KUTV.
Right. I'm glad that you're still here with us here on KUTV Kenya. Welcome to Biashara Tuesday. If it's your first time, tell us where you are watching from. I'll be looking at the feedback as we go on with the discussion that's about to go down here. A very important discussion in this month of mental health awareness. May is dedicated to celebrating and also creating awareness on mental health challenges. And this morning, we're taking this discussion to comprehensive continuum of care. If you're confused with what comprehensive continuum of care is, don't worry. There are many of us from before that, but I have guests with me who are experts in this very field, and they're going to inform us exactly what comprehensive continuum of care is and how important it is for people around you or yourself if you're undergoing mental health challenges. Before I get ahead of myself, let me just welcome my guests to the show. I'm glad to have you here this morning. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. I'm happy to be here and to be discussing mental health this month. Thank you for welcoming us here.
Welcome to, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Davis Gatua, and I'm happy to be here to discuss this pertinent issue that has been affecting our nation, our young people, old people, and all generation alike.
Right. That is Dr. Davis Gatua is counseling. Reverend Doctor, I'm informed that that's important to also mention. Reverend Dr. Davis Gatua is a counseling psychologist and lecturer at Kenyatta University. Dr. Susan, we didn't get to introduce you. I'll just give you that chance.
I'm Dr. Susan Hinga. I'm a consultant psychiatrist and a lecturer at Kenyatta University in the School of Medicine, the Department of Psychiatry and Mental Health.
Right. Let's get into it right away. But before we discuss mental health and comprehensive continuum of care, what is the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist so that we are not confused who we are referring to who?
Okay, if I could start off. Psychiatrists are medical doctors who have specialized in treating mental disorders. Just like you could have a pediatrician who specializes in treating children or an obstetrician who specializes in treating obstetrical women issues. So they are medical doctors first, and then they specialize to treat mental illnesses.
All right. Yes. And then the psychiatrist, the psychologist, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. Psychologists actually are professionals, well-trained, people who deal with anxieties or mental issues that are related to psychological effects. You realize that stress is part of our life. People get psychological challenges every day, and therefore psychologists get in to offer some psychological interventions on day-to-day challenges among the people, cutting across all the stages, be it children, adolescents, young adults, and even old people. Yep.
Right. Let's get into mental health now. Before we get to know comprehensive continuum of care and what it encompasses, maybe I can get a definition from you, and then maybe later move on to Dr. Susan for the next set of questions. But what is mental health to begin with?
Thank you so much. From psychological point of view, mental health can be defined as a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her potential or abilities. The person actually has ability to cope with normal stresses of life. And this is actually able to help someone to become more productive and fruitful and make a contribution to the society. So mental health actually is that state of well-being, okay, in all aspects. Call it psychological, intellectual, and even physical. So it actually encompasses that, because mental health, actually, when you are not mentally well, you may not also be spiritually well, you may not be physically well. So that's why we are saying it's a state of well-being. Yes.
Right. Moving to Dr. Susan, we are talking about comprehensive care. And we are used to traditional care, which I'm thinking is your realm, of course, dispensation of medication as we already know it. What is comprehensive care? And then we can now get to know the difference between comprehensive care and what we are used to as, I will call it now, traditional healthcare.
When we talk about care in mental health, it's slightly different from the usual thing we're used to in other specialities. Now, in mental health care, we look at the whole person when it comes to caring for them. And in this aspect, we use a model called a biopsychosocial model. It was first interestingly defined by a cardiologist many years ago in 1977. George Angel was the first person to describe it, but we have since embraced it in mental health, and we have looked at the different aspects in which we try to care for our patients. So the aspects are three. So the biopsychosocial are actually three words put together. So the first one is biological, which looks at the normal way in which the body functions, that's physiological, the functioning of the body, and where the functioning goes wrong, which is the pathology. The second aspect is the psychological. So we are looking at issues of the mind and the emotional well-being of a person. And then the social aspect, we look at the interactions of an individual. No individual lives on their own. They interact with society, they interact with peers, they interact with family, they interact at work, at school. So each one of those is part of what we look at when we think of the social aspect. So it's a biopsychosocial model. We don't focus only on one aspect of treatment. The treatment is a threefold, so that we look at the patient as a wholesome.
Right. How does this approach benefit an individual with mental health challenges?
This is because when we look at the care of a patient with a mental disorder, we come up with what we call a formulation while looking at what is it the patient has presented with. So what was the presenting complaint? What brought the patient to see the therapist, whether it's a psychiatrist or a psychologist? Now, from there, then we look at different aspects. What is it that predisposed this patient to actually get into this state where they are? Then we look again and ask ourselves, what is it that precipitated, actually increased whatever was predisposing, so that this patient eventually got tipped over and is now unable to function? Then we look at what is it that continues this, the perpetuating factors. What are those factors within the patient that continue the symptoms that we are seeing in the patient? And we also look at what are the things that are protective over this patient. So when you're focusing on care, we're looking at it as a whole, formulating something that is helpful to the patient. We're looking at these factors and trying to help the patient get back to normal functioning.
All right. Come back to you, Reverend. And I think maybe later on we can get into the reverend part and the doctor part to understand how that plays in your role as a psychologist. But are there different stages or levels of continuum comprehensive care?
Oh, yes, there are stages of continuum of care, as she has explained, that when we are talking about mental health, we are not talking about one area in life. We are talking about holistic approach. And this is whereby, for example, we have someone with mild issues or mental disturbances, and then it progresses. And as it progresses, we may have actually a multi-sectoral approach. As she has said, that we have biopsychosocial model. This is whereby, for example, we have somebody with mental health illness. We start by asking ourselves, what are the causes of this problem? And then after that, we say, what are the correct measures of interventions? Therefore, actually, mental health illness or mental illness cannot be addressed using one single model or one single item or aspect. Therefore, there are these stages, for example. One, in order for one to have mental illness, it starts with just normal worries, normal anxieties. And if the anxiety is not addressed, it graduates to stress. And if the stress is not addressed at some point, it can actually go to the level of depression. So that's why we are saying that along these stages, there need to be some interventions at the onset stages, early stages. And therefore, we can now decide to say, at what level do we need psychologists? At what level do we need psychiatrists? So there are those levels and stages in mental illness.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. You've mentioned there, of course, at what level do we need this particular, healthcare professional and this other one? How does this collaboration ensure the seamless provision of this continuum care for mental health patients?
Well, thank you so much. You realize that mental health treatment is not a single touch activity. It is rather a continuous and embraces a multi-sectoral, multi-dimensional approach. And therefore, for example, if someone comes complaining of probably continuous depression or anxiety, then a counselor may actually chip in. And if a counselor discovers that there is a need to refer this client to a psychiatrist, then you do. And actually, most of the causes of mental illness are diverse and depends on individual. And that's why we are saying that the treatment needs to be more customized. Actually, the continuum care needs to be customized. That means that as we are having this biopsychosocial model, you did know actually at what point are you referring this client to a psychiatrist, at what period of time do you need to refer this client either to rehabilitation center or outpatient center, and so on and so forth. So that, and you also see that even at home, because all people with mental illness actually, they live with some people at home, right? Then there is that care at home, there is that care in the hospital, there is that care with psychologists and so on and so forth. So there is a continuous approach and continuous attention given to the people suffering from mental illness.
All right.
Yep.
That's great. What I'm understanding in this continuous application of comprehensive care is that there's need for appropriate level of care for each individual mental health patient or condition. And I think I'm going to bounce the next question back to Dr. Susan. What is the role that a psychiatrist's evaluation and assessment plays in ensuring that we are having that appropriate level of care for mental health conditions?
Okay, now when patients seek help, they can choose to go to different places to seek help. So one of the places that they could go is walk into a hospital, to a general hospital, and probably find the doctor in casualty or the health worker in casualty and explain what their problem is or what has brought them to the hospital. So many times, the first contact is probably with somebody who is a generalist, a general doctor, or somebody who is working in an A&D or a casualty. Now, once the patient is seen and evaluated, many times we'll have the patients then referred to see a psychiatrist because the doctor who is a general practitioner picks up that whatever issues the patient has, then need further, the patient needs further help from a psychiatrist. But there are also patients who the first contact is with a therapist or a psychologist. So they first go to a psychologist because they feel they have these issues that are bothering them. So whichever way, patients will end up being seen by the psychiatrist. Now, the role as a psychiatrist plays is one, we start by doing an interview of the patient. So we interview the patient, take what we call a detailed history, so that you go back and are able to define what brought the patient, what medications have they been on, what treatments have they been on, what is their family history, and what's their personal history. In the same sitting, if you're able to get history from a next of kin of somebody who lives or who knows the patient better, which could be a parent, a sibling, a spouse, a friend, or a fellow worker, then we call that corroborative history. So we get further details of history so that we can come up with a diagnosis of what is it that is ailing our patient. After doing the interview, we do an examination. So in the examination, we start with a physical examination because some of the presentations that look as though it's a mental disorder may actually be a physical disorder that needs to be sorted out, and the patient then does not need to be wholly treated as though it's purely a mental disorder. Right. So we rule that out, and while ruling that out, we may also need to conduct tests so that we rule out that it's not this, and therefore this is what it is. Right. So we interview the patient, we examine the patient. So in the examination, we have a physical examination for the whole body, but we also have a special examination we call a mental status examination. Right. We then come up with a diagnosis. So we have a special way in which we make diagnosis for the patient. Now, once we have the diagnosis and we have done investigations to rule out that it's not other causes, that the symptoms we are seeing are not being caused by other conditions, we then come up with a biopsychosocial model of treatment. So in this, then the biological part is the chief place where you'll see the psychiatrist, or better known as a shrink, taking part. Now, in the biological, we focus on knowing that a patient has what is physiological, the normal body functions are now not going on well, so they have a pathology. Within our brains, deep inside the midbrain, we have substances we call neurotransmitters. Right. Now, these are chemical messengers. Messengers pass information from one place to another. Now, these chemical messengers, they control our thinking, they control our mood, they control the way we behave. Now, if something then is unusual about those transmitters, for example, we have some, I'll name some common ones like dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, which I'm sure our viewers have probably heard about them. Yeah. So if we have an imbalance in any of these neurotransmitters, and there are many others, I've just named the three common ones. If there's an imbalance, then that means that what we see on the outside, the behavior, the emotions, the thinking of the patient is then abnormal. So in biological, what we seek to do is correct that neurotransmitter so that it goes back to what is normal, and hence we change the emotions, the thinking, and the behavior of the patient. So that is a focus of the biological treatment.
Okay. Yes. Dr. Davis, I'm going to ask you now, since she's mentioned there earlier in her response about, sometimes a patient will, the first person a patient will interact with, maybe a therapist, maybe a general practitioner, maybe a psychologist. How do we ensure a very smooth transition between these different professionals in the healthcare space to ensure that a patient is always getting to the right, the right assessment first at the very beginning?
Thank you so much. Actually, all people live in a particular setup. For example, people at home, if they can be able to identify or someone can feel that he's not okay, probably he's having some worries, probably he's having some dysfunctions like not having enough sleep. Someone could be having some problem with appetite. Someone could be having some problem with cognitions. Then two things can happen to an individual suffering from mental illness. One can decide personally to either speak at home or talk to the parents or the siblings, and then they can either discuss at that level. And if someone feels that no, this thing is becoming more challenging, they can choose now to go to a therapist as an individual. Someone's choice to go and see the therapist. Then the therapist actually at first will conduct what we call mental status examination, as Dr. Hinga has said. And this one, you observe the physical appearance, cognitions, and psychomotor, and moods and speech, and even the social interactions or the emotions and so on. And that's the first stage when someone goes to the therapist. And then a therapist takes some details concerning the life of this person and what has been happening, the historical background and so on, and what has changed, okay, be it the behavior, the mind, the emotions, and so on and so forth. Now, that's one way a person can choose to go and see a therapist. Number two, in the family setup, for example, or even at the workplace, or even in school, or any social setting, some people can discover, for example, our friend is changing the behavior. Our friend is changing the manner in which he speaks or talks. And even at some point with addiction, you can discover that this person these days is taking too much of alcohol or any other drugs. And therefore, before the person gets into dependency, there can be a parent, a friend, a manager at the workplace, a teacher, referring this person to the therapist. And actually, it is now in the therapy room or in the therapy intervention whereby a counselor or psychologist may employ different techniques, different approaches after discovering and of course using the DSM-5 manual to discover or to ascertain what kind of a problem, what kind of mental illness is this person going through. The psychologist once discovers that this is a mild problem he can or she can deal with, then she can go ahead. However, sometimes you discover that the causes of the mental illness, anxiety, depression, and all that could be some of the things that can be dealt with. Maybe lack of something, loss of something, and so on and so forth. So at this person, if the person has not graduated to psychotic level, the counselor or psychologist can deal with it. Actually can help this person to change the way in which this person views or perceives things, behaves, and so and adjust to the changes in life. However, if the client is found to be in a more advanced level of mental disturbances, this is the time that you refer this person to a medical doctor, that is the psychiatrist.
All right.
On the other hand, this is why we are calling it continuum of care, comprehensive. If, for example, someone or maybe an old man is getting some problems, marriage problems, then a psychologist may refer this person to a marriage counselor.
Okay.
Actually, it's just about connectivity. And for example, again, if this person is actually having some mental problems because of maybe there could be some conflict somewhere, you can refer this person to a mediator, you see, so that you take care and you are able to connect the person ailing from mental disturbances to the correct practitioner.
Right. In every circle, there's a radius which cannot be ignored. And in this circle of comprehensive continuum care, we cannot forget the individual, right? Now, what is the role of the individual who's being assessed, who's being diagnosed, whose care is being given? How do we involve them in their care to ensure that they're also taking part in this process towards their full recovery or treatment of the health conditions? Any of you can take it up.
Thank you. Let me start because this one falls squarely on both psychological intervention and also psychiatrists. With the psychological intervention, we have different approaches. For example, we have behavioral approach. This is whereby we help someone who is suffering from dysfunctional of some kind, suffering maybe from phobic disorder or depression or any other problem. What we do, you can help this person. One, if you use, for example, also psychoanalytic approach, you help this person to be aware, and that's why we are having mental awareness program. Someone to be aware that he is having some problems, because many people suffer because they are not aware. They are actually in denial at some point. So using psychoanalytic approach, you help someone to be aware so that he can actually now start operating from a conscious state of the mind, right? And if now you actually embrace behavioral approach in helping this person, actually there are some assignments that you give the person. You are actually trying to empower this person, developing the willpower, the willpower to cope with the challenges, the willpower to change to the, maybe there is a loss of a parent, a loss of something, and so on and so forth. So you help the person to cope. You empower the person with correct perceptions, with correct behavior. And therefore, an individual has a big role to own responsibility, whereby the responsibility are collaboratively designed by the individual and the counselor or the therapist. What is the goal of the counseling at the moment? What are the desires of this person who is ailing? The person would say, for example, I'm in conflict in my marriage. Then what do you want to do, or what do you want to achieve? And then you give this person, after deliberations, after exploring the causes and some of the measures that can be taken, a person has some personal responsibilities. And then you help the person to come up with an inventory program. Okay, what have we achieved this week? What have we achieved this time? And so on and so forth. As we measure the change of behavior, the change of the mindset, the change of the perception.
Right.
So actually in the treatment, using psychological approach, the client has a major role to determine the end result.
Right. Autonomy and empowerment. Dr. Susan, how do you involve an individual in their own care plan?
Okay. One of the major differences you see between physical illnesses and mental disorders is that sometimes patients with mental disorders do not have the ability to understand that they are unwell. In the mental status examination that I just said, which is our major examination, towards the end, we assess the ability of a patient to understand that they're unwell or they're not. Now, when we have patients who understand that they are unwell, these are patients, we say, who have insight. Now, what you do with a patient who has insight is different from what you do with a patient who does not have insight at the point of contact. Now, the one who has insight, you go ahead and discuss a treatment model that we just discussed. That you can discuss with the patient that this is what has happened, so that they are aware that this is what has happened to the neurotransmitters, and that is why we have this behavior that you're having. And this is how we are going to correct it biologically or pharmacologically, and this is how we'll do talk therapy or involve the sociology so that we help in your social issues. Now, when we have a patient who does not have insight or the ability to understand they're unwell, now the task is two-way. One, we institute treatment, sometimes with the permission of the person who brought the patient, what we call involuntary treatment. So we start treatment because sometimes it requires the patient is treated so they develop insight, that ability to understand that they're unwell. On top of that, we also do insight therapy. So we help the patient understand as we go along with the treatment that this is what we are observing and this is what they should understand that makes us categorize them as being unwell. We also go ahead and psychoeducate the patient, meaning we make the patient aware that this is how you got here, and this is how you can get out of here, and this is how you can remain well when you leave here. So depending on whether the patient has insight or not, then the mode of treatment and how you deal with the patient will differ.
Right. We're speaking about this model, biopsychosocial. I hope I got that right. I'm going to ask you from a psychologist's perspective now, how do you involve the support system around the individual in this process of continuum care? And then maybe at the very end, what if this support system is also the problem? Maybe it's from the family, and the family is the one that's bringing these mental health problems, but you still need to involve them in the care. How do we strike a balance there?
Thank you so much. We have what we call myriotherapy. Myriotherapy is actually essence of employing every support system within the reach. And we are saying that when someone is having some problem, he needs some support system. Yeah? For example, at home, if someone actually is going through talk therapy or psychotherapeutic process, this person can have a support system, one from the therapist, himself or herself. You help this person, one, to understand the root cause, the underlying issues that cause some of these mental illness, or even the use of substance that may cause some substance use disorder, okay? Because they are actually intertwined. Next is that when someone is going through recovery process in mental health, there are two systems or many other systems. For example, you can refer someone to the rehabilitation center. In the rehabilitation center, they can get some of these social workers helping them to cope with the day-to-day life events. And even at home, for example, if someone is having some social problems, you help the parents. And you have asked that supposing the problem is this support group. Yeah? What to do, for example, if the problem is back at home, Maslow approach, that there needs to be some basic needs, provision of basic needs. So you bring on board the parents. If it is school, you bring on board the teachers, you bring on board classroom teachers, the peer counselors in school, you bring also on board even the school counselors, and so on and so on. That means you do not address a specific person in the support system. You also work with the support system so that they can offer all support care to this person.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. That is a very great way to put it there, to involve everyone around, not just the family, but maybe any other social setting in which...
Even at the workplace, at some point we have people suffering some anxiety or probably stress. And the stress could be coming from the line managers.
That's true.
So even if you help this client, the problem is the line manager. And that's why we take a step further and maybe have some sessions with the line managers or the management of an institution, for example, even an institution like this one, whereby you may have some stress, because stress is part of life, all right, caused by different things. Therefore, you need to bring every person on board.
Right.
The parents, the siblings, the neighbors maybe, and so on and so forth, so that they may be able to support this person. One, when people have some mental illness or substance disorder, they suffer from stigma. You know, they are stigmatized. And therefore, in order for you to bring down the level of stigma and this person to feel that he is accepted in the community or even in the family, you need to bring everybody on board, so that as this person goes through the recovery process, this person also go through integration in the family or integration in the society and integration in whatever place this person is, be it a school, be it in the, actually even in religious quarters. We advocate that even the clergy need to be trained at some point, so that not every problem can be described as demonic attack. You know, they need to know and to have some knowledge of this simple mental status examination, so that they can be able to tell this is a mental condition and this is a spiritual issue, and how it can be dealt with.
Okay.
So I think that as we help the people with the mental illness, the psychologists cannot work alone. Psychiatrists at the same time may not also be able to work alone. We need all each other as we actually offer a comprehensive care.
Right. I'm going to get back to you, Reverend Dr. Davis, to get a comment on spirituality and how it plays a role there in mental health, and maybe how you approach it. So far, you've just given us a bit of nuggets there. But to you, Dr. Susan, what are some advancements or maybe future directions that you see in treatment options for mental health patients in regards to continuum care of mental health?
And just like we said, we have the three cares being put together to help our patients. We don't focus on one care. Now, I believe your question is focused more on the biological care. We just said it's with a focus on pharmacological care, where looking back at what I described, that people have mental disorders because something goes wrong with their neurotransmitters. So in pharmacological care, what we're focusing on is putting back these neurotransmitters to the level at which they should be, so that we have normal levels of serotonin, normal levels of dopamine, normal levels of norepinephrine, so that the patient is able to function normally. So when we focus on pharmacological care, we look at the different drugs that keep on changing over time. What we had in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, even what we have now, we continue advancing as there's more research being done and as we discover what else are we getting to know more about and how else can we improve in terms of the medications that we give. But we also have physical treatments. We have treatments like electroconvulsive therapy. We have light therapy, patients where they have long winters and long days without sun. So there are different forms of therapies that are available. And as we go along, there are different that are being researched on and that are helping improve on our care. But as I said, care is not just pharmacological. So we also, again, as we formulate and look at how we're going to help our patients, we put out, this is a biological treatment that we are prescribing for our patients. This is a psychological treatment, which is like the talk therapy that we are prescribing for our patients. Could it be individual therapy? Are we looking at family therapy? Are we looking at psychoeducating the patient, inside therapy, and the rest of the therapies? And finally, at the social level, again, we're looking at the interactions of the patient. How is your patient interacting with the family, with the peers, with school, with work? So again, we bring in the sociology. So it's the care is different levels, different people bringing in their input so that we make and improve on the care or mental well-being of our patients.
Right.
Yes.
And I'm sure in medical dispensation, there's probably a conflict in how patients are handling their own, I will call it self-prescribed medication, which leads to substance abuse and whatnot. But I think that will be a conversation for another time, how you handle such situation where patients have already gone way deep into substance abuse to maybe get that dopamine on their own. Coming back to you, Reverend, as we close up, future directions in terms of continuum care as regards to very specifically psychology, but also spirituality as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, thank you so much. I would say that mental illness, especially in Kenya and in the world, is a pertinent issue of concern. In 2019, a task force was set by the president to find out the levels and matters of mental health. Actually, and it was discovered that 1 person out of 4 is mentally ill. Okay? In every group of people, 1 person, and maybe today it's 1 person out of 3 because of the challenges that are all over. So the question is, what can we do? There has been a lot and an alarming issue of suicidal tendencies in the country, whereby we find, for example, in some counties, I did a research in 2017 in 2 counties in this country and discovered that many young people are committing suicide. Many young families are left without someone to take care of. Okay? So the question is, what should we do? What is the way forward for helping our people to overcome the challenges? As we said, this is actually a multi-dimensional approach. Okay? To start with, I think that we need to have professional psychologists deployed in every public and private sector. Okay? They need to be, because the mental health issues and even the drugs use disorder begin or are triggered by very basic issues. Maybe misunderstanding, some conflict, loss of property, loss of life of someone you love, and so on and so forth. So if we can have professional psychologists or counselors in every institution, actually just to mention, last year where we had a 9-year-old child in primary school committing suicide.
Very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. Today, I believe that in your news, every time there are these news that there has been some homicides suicidal cases, murder here and there, and so on and so forth. This is something that we cannot keep quiet anymore. And we are saying, as psychologists in the country, in the land, that we need to have professional psychologists actually deployed in every sector. Even in the media stations, we need psychologists, actually. We need counselors. Even at the police, okay, security agencies. Yeah, just see what is happening in Mombasa. Who is taking care of those security agencies? Who are exhuming the bodies and all that?
Probably no one.
No one, actually. Look at our military people. Who takes care of them? Go to the schools. Who takes care of them? Look at the teachers. Look at the children. Go to the families. Who is doing that? And we are suggesting that we need professional, well-trained counselors or psychologists in every sector in the government. Number two, we need also to check on, the government need to come up with a model of actually improving mental health, you know, treatment process or centers in the country. For example, improve or build more psychiatric centers in the land. I don't know how many psychiatrists we have in the country. Actually, I can't tell. Look at even the psychologists in the country. They are also very few. So we need actually to train more, employ more, and actually have them located at the all levels of the administration in the land. I would also seek to ask the government and all other stakeholders to come up with a model whereby in every level, in every institution, there could be a setup, a well set up and organized method of meeting basic needs of individuals. Sorry to mention this, and it's quite sad that we have lost our students in Kenyatta University, some committing suicide, some going through murder and all that. What is it that we can do as Kenyatta University, as Nairobi University, as high schools, you know, places of work? We need to have as a place whereby all a well organized program of taking care of our own people, light where they are, before they advance to psychotic or psychiatric issues, whereby they can now go and get the medication. Because mental illness, as we said, is more of, can I tell you something?
Right.
That 20%, a research has been done. Actually, I was involved in one of these researches with the Dr. Biketi in Nakuru Level 5 Hospital, that about 40% of the outpatient cases presented are psychosomatic related diseases. And around 50% of inpatient, you know, people in the hospitals suffer from psychosomatic related diseases. So if we can have some programs addressing these issues, light from the family, in the community, in the institution, I think this would be a very pertinent way of dealing with the mental health issues in the country, in all sectors. Now, you have also asked about the issue of spirituality.
Spirituality, right.
And I think this is something that is going up in the country because of what is happening here and there. As I said, is that we need to have our clergy, because there is a difference between possession, depression, and at some point, some people may not know when people are possessed, all right? And actually the mental condition. I suggest And this is what we've been doing in Nakuru County.
Right.
With the clergy, we have a platform of Nakuru Christian Leaders Platform, which I head that psychosocial of dealing with the mental illness or mental health issues. For example, if a lady says that there is a dispute between the wife and the husband, parents and the children, some of these issues may not be considered to be demonic attacks. The clergy need to be well informed on some of these things that may trigger and lead to mental health problems.
Okay.
How many people commit suicide and they actually are members of churches or other religious groups? Therefore, I suggest that clergy need to be given some empowerment and knowledge and equipment on mental health basics.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much there, Reverend Dr. Davis. I'm looking here at WHO report of 2014, which indicates that Kenya was ranked at the 4th position in Africa with 1.9 million people having mental illnesses. In 2014, there were only about 62 psychiatrists in the Republic. In the figures that I'm getting from 2015 and published here, 100. And there are only about 100 psychiatrists in Kenya, most of them based in Nairobi. And this is a report by the National Institutes of Health. You can check that out. I don't know between 2015 and now how many psychiatrists have graduated, but maybe you can speak a bit about that. Why do we see this deficiency in healthcare professionals, even as we try and round up this conversation?
Yeah, we sure do have a deficiency. We don't have enough psychiatrists to see every patient who has a mental disorder in this country. However, there's another way we look at it. I train medical students, and I'll tell you that every medical doctor who has gone through the training of being a medical doctor has had training in mental disorders. So they're not 100% green about taking care of patients with mental disorders. So wherever these medical interns or medical officers are stationed, whether in public hospitals or in private hospitals, they are capable of taking care of mentally ill patients. We also have different levels of care. We have clinical officers who are also trained. Again, through their training, they have some training on treating mental disorders, and some have gone ahead to subspecialize in treating specifically mental disorders. We also have psychiatry nurses at the very lower levels of care. So it doesn't mean that every patient who has a mental disorder must come into contact with a psychiatrist.
Must look for this 100.
Yes, we don't have to look for the 100. They say there are few. We are still hoping and very hopeful that we shall have more in our country. But even at different levels, all the even from psychiatry nurses, we have psychiatry nurses who run even level 1 places where level one care in our country where they could manage patients. We have clinical officers, as I've said, we have medical officers. So we may not have enough psychiatrists, but with what we have now, we can have everybody taking care of patients and referring upwards where they feel the care is beyond their training.
Right.
So we may be fewer psychiatrists, but there's still people out there who we have trained as medical students who are now medical doctors and who are working in various public and private hospitals where people can seek care. So people should not give up and decide they can't find their 100 psychiatrists, so they will not seek care. You can seek care because at different levels, you can get care for mental disorders.
Right. Yes. And I'm going to just now just read a very small report again from 2021 before I get your last remarks. Anything that I might left out in this conversation would be the time to bring it out here. In July 2021, the Directorate of Criminal Investigation said that Kenya recorded nearly 500 suicide cases in just 3 months. And seeing that the youngest person reported, as according to Dr. Davis said, there was a 9-year-old, and the oldest was a 76-year-old. So it seems that mental health challenges are actually quite a big issue in Kenya. To finalize this conversation on that note, maybe a comment from you to other healthcare professionals and you as well, and maybe the general public on how we should handle this holistic approach towards mental health conditions.
Thank you so much. As I said that there is an alarming case, and mental health illness is a problem that is affecting this nation in a very big way. In 2019, all the way to 2022, because of COVID-19, the issues of suicidal cases in Kenya really raised up so high. And I think not only that, even today, what is happening in every sector, every family, among all individuals, actually is that there are a high level of stress in the land. I can say actually almost 80% of Kenyans as we talk today are somehow going through some tough moments, because of diverse issues. Call it cost of living, call it family issues, call it demands of day-to-day life experiences. And this is my take, that in every community, we need to have social workers, if not psychologists. Ministry of Health need to have some volunteers in every community, every ward, every village, and so on and so forth. And also, I was thinking that if we could have this mental health issues or program be involved, integrated in our education curriculum, so that even those children at the young level can be trained on how to deal and handle some of these challenges, because challenges are part of us. Stress is part of life. But the question is, how do we cope with it? So we need to have these people who can help our children in school. In schools, we need to have professional counselors. In churches, in fact, we need to have professional counselors in every religious institution. At the workplace, we need to have trained and professional psychologists in every workstation, in the Republic. And I also think that at some point, I would call upon the government to work it out, to have people go through the life that is manageable in meeting day-to-day needs. The life, when the life goes up so high, the living, the cost of living goes too high, you find that people are stressed. So I would call upon the government also to chip in heavily, not only relying on, because there are so many triggers of mental health. Look at the climate change. The climate change also is affecting. See the farmers, what happened in the last 3 years, no crop production. The climatic change also affects the psychological wellness of the community and the people in the land. Therefore, I think that it's a multi-sectoral approach. Let the government take its share. Finally, I would say, if any person who is listening to us, you feel that things are not okay, note the following. It is good not to feel okay. And it is good also to feel okay. And in case of any challenge, it's always important to seek some assistance from a confidant. Actually, before we go to the hospital, one need to share. For example, Daktari, many people, when they go to the hospital, actually, even with this terminal illness, you discover that they are now almost at the final stages. Why can't people share with the family members, share with a friend, share with the pastor, share with any leader, wherever you are? Just share your concerns. And if you feel that you are getting into addiction in a way, because addiction also actually gets people into a deeper mental illness. I would share that if you are having some mental or addiction, somehow get into a friend, speak it out, share it out. Don't die alone. Finally, my friend, drugs addiction or any addiction can be treatable, can be prevented. And mental health issues or illness, I would say here, laundry, it can be prevented, it can be managed, and finally, it is treatable.
All right.
Let us love our people in the community, those who are suffering from mental illness, those who are actually suffering from addiction. Let us embrace them. Let us not condemn them. Let us walk with them. Let us provide for them. Let us give them the warmth. And I am sure that if we give some of these core conditions, love, empathy, and actually we become more genuine to them so that they can understand and know what they are going through, that would be a beginning point of healing this nation and healing the world.
Right.
Healing our children, healing our parents, healing our youngsters, and those guys who are finishing school, the graduates. Don't give up in life. Don't give up in life. There are many, many options.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, too.
Probably just to
Dr.
wind,
Susan,
as
yes.
we wind up,
Right.
and I'll touch a bit on suicide. Majority of people who die by suicide have mental illness. Note I've said majority, so it's not everybody who dies by suicide who has a mental illness. So suicide to us is an emergency. When a patient attempts suicide and survives, to us it's a cry for help. So we seek to pick out what is it that the patient is crying out for help when they survive. For example, when they attempt suicide and they survive. Now, as I've said, not every person who dies by suicide has a mental disorder,
right.
but we do know that majority of them have, and on the other hand, that the top on the list of the conditions that they would have would be depression. So we seek to treat patients so that then we don't end up losing our patients by dying by suicide. Now, I've talked about patients who attempt suicide as a cry for help. One of the things that we are doing as a Kenya Psychiatric Association is trying to decriminalize suicide. In our country, suicide is like it's illegal to attempt suicide. You could probably get arrested. However, we are looking at it from a mental health point of view and seeing that it's a cry for help. So if we can get this decriminalized, then probably we would have more people coming out and we are able to treat them so that then they do not eventually die by suicide. So suicide to us is an emergency and it's something we are looking at.
Right.
And maybe to wind it up, as he's talked about substance use disorders, yes, it's a chicken egg story. Some patients start using substances because they already have an underlying mental illness. Others develop mental illness as a result of using a substance. So as I've said, chicken egg, but we still manage substance use disorders. So even those with substance use disorders, do not give up, go to the nearest health facility and you will get help.
Right.
And to wind it up, I'll say there is no health without mental health. Thank you.
There is no health without mental health. Thank you very much for that.
If you allow me, Henry,
Sure thing.
let me say that we all have responsibilities, each one of us, of taking care of every person suffering either from mental illness or substance use. And finally, may I take this opportunity to thank Kenyatta University and our Vice Chancellor for championing the mental health discussion in this month. I thank also the Department of Psychology, Kenyatta University. I thank the Department of Psychiatrists. I thank all the departments that have taken place in this discussion and championing even the work on mental health issues.
Right.
Let us come out and support our people from mental illness.
All right. Comprehensive continuum of care. That's the discussion we've had here with Reverend Reverend Dr. Davis Gatua. He is a counseling psychologist and lecturer at Kenyatta University. Accompanying him has been Dr. Susan Hinga, who's a consultant psychiatrist and also a lecturer at Kenyatta University. Continuum of Care, a framework that promotes collaboration, coordination, and continuity in healthcare delivery. And today, specifically, speaking about mental health challenges. You've heard it here first. Maybe you've heard it other places before, but it is okay not to be okay. Reach out to the relevant authorities and also seek help if you feel like you need it. Don't shy away. And those other people who are in the support system of these individuals, please don't promote stigma if this kind of people or individuals are seeking for help. Thank you very much for tuning in to Biashara Tuesday for that conversation. I'm going to take a short break, coming back to read your feedback, all the questions and responses that you've been sending on social media, so don't go too far.
Maelfu na maelfu ya wahamiaji wakiwa na watoto kutoka nchi za Amerika ya Kati wanaendelea kuwasili kwenye mpaka kati ya Marekani na Mexico.
The folks are going. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ni habari kutoka pembe zote duniani.
Pipopa si vuguvugu. Pipopa ni idea.
Sazidi ananyonya, hanyonyi vizuri, anakuwa hayuko comfortable.
Jeshi la Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo linapambana na waasi wa ADF.
Kwa sasa wanatoa wito kwa mashirika, makampuni na vile vituo vya uchukuzi.
Mambo mengi yatakwenda kama yalivyopangwa.
Hapa ni kuna mmoja wa viongozi wa chama cha wavuvi katika eneo hili.
Zaidi tunajaribu kuwapa chanjo ili ina boost ama inanyanyua kinga ya mwili, ndio inaenda kupelekea kupambana na virusi.
Ni dunia ni leo, Jumatatu mpaka Ijumaa, moja kwa moja kutoka VOA Swahili, Washington DC.
We are all seeing the impacts of climate change. In Kenya, for example, the frequency of the floods is becoming more and worse. The amount of people and livestock we are losing.
The level we need to go is a level where the normal mwananchi and also the government stakeholders can uptake these solutions.
Those small acts multiplied by millions of us will help make a difference in the world at the end of the day.
It's just a slight behavior change that we need, and you'll find that it serves us a bit more than you put in. And that's the goal. We want to live a better world than we found. Because at the rate we are going, it's dire.
We will secure the planet for future generations.
Access to knowledge. Solution to unanswered questions.
Guidelines to pursuing your rights and repossessing your property, intellectual or material.
This and more only on Law Matters.
Kipindi hewani ni mitindo ya kipwani. Kama ilivyo kipindi hiki kinahusu nyimbo za tarab, chakacha, midwara, midundiko, bila kusahau mapishi. Ambao ndio uti wa mgongo wa pwani ya Afrika Mashariki.
Jamani swaibu zangu mliopo maskani, hatuonani wenzangu, najua mwanitamani.
Hapa KUTV, nahodha mwendesha chombo cha baharini, yani ua linalonukia na kuvutia waridi tamu.
Adventures across the African continent. See breathtaking wildlife, stunning landscapes, and out of this world technology. Meet incredible scientists and learn fantastic facts. Explore, discover, be amazed. Be part of the next generation of African change makers. Be a part of Engine, Africa's #1 science discovery program. Yay!
We're learning every day. Let's go. Engine leads the way.
What is this magic? I need that magic.
Somebody call 911.
Anything for your girl, give me more.
Nasema sugri wagri, den den den.
Kipindi hewani ni mitindo ya kipwani. Kama ilivyo kipindi hiki kinahusu nyimbo za tarab, chakacha, midwara, midundiko, bila kusahau mapishi. Ambao ndio uti wa mgongo wa pwani ya Afrika Mashariki.
Jamani swaibu zangu mliopo maskani, hatuonani wenzangu, najua mwanitamani.
Hapa KUTV, nahodha mwendesha chombo cha baharini, yani ua linalonukia na kuvutia waridi tamu.
Technology, science, innovation, ICT and research. These are the ingredients upon which the solutions to the 21st century problems are founded. In a world that is rapidly changing, it's all hands on deck to ensure a balance in all fields of life. Women, young and old, are also in the front line, breaking the glass ceiling, becoming thought leaders in the larger tech space. Not forgetting other societies marginalized. And when the tech Avengers come together, we inch closer to a much safer, efficient, and sustainable world. What we view as a norm in today's advanced world was just an idea, and for nostalgic reasons, we trace back to the iconic days to bring you the retro tech. On Technovation Show, we encapsulate all the pillars of the fourth industrial revolution, decoded in a language all for one for all. every Monday at 8:30 as we push the mantra, keep learning something new each and every day. Only on KUTV, a new experience.
All right. Thank you for keeping it here still on Biashara Tuesday. We just had a conversation on mental health awareness and continuum comprehensive care. It is a holistic approach in how we're dealing with mental health challenges. If you missed that, it will be there on YouTube. KUTV Kenya will upload the whole conversation. I see here guys who've been tuning in, so it's important that I give them shout outs so that more of you can continue sending in your responses and feedbacks. Beginning with Wilfrida Olali, watching from where? Wilfrida, tell us where you are watching the show from. Mark Levis, loving the chat. Sharon Muthoni, tuned in and loving the conversation. John Samson Oteo, watching from where? Jen, tuned in from where? Do tell us where you're tuning in from and also inform other people to join the live stream. We're on YouTube Live, KUTV Kenya Live. We are on your television sets as well, so have fun with the comment section. And also on Twitter, do tag us and use the hashtag Biashara Tuesday. Abi Sharia, that was a good conversation on mental health and on how to get helped. So you heard it here first, and how comprehensive and continuum care is important for mental health conditions. Right about now, I'm going out to take a look at what has been the development in the world of news, politics, and whatnot in the world, beyond and here in Kenya. I have the newspapers with me. I'll be having a discussion with the chairman of the Youth Green Society. CEO of the Youth Green Society has been here before, Dennis Kimani. He'll be joining me on set to discuss the headlines and the most important stories of the day. The Standard is prioritizing this conversation on tax measures by President William Ruto. And the headline here reads, Ruto faces taxes rebellion among Mount Kenya MPs. Elected leaders from the Deputy President's backyard are an uneasy lot after attempts to make them embrace new tax measures have fallen flat. So that is what is happening within the UDA camp, or the Kenya Kwanza camp at large. The Daily Nation, a fund for every president, then a loss of billions. They're detailing here the amount of money that two of President William Ruto's predecessors, that is Uhuru Kenyatta and Mwai Kibaki, in how they allocated for various funds, from the Women Enterprise Fund to the Youth Fund, Land Settlement Fund, Uhuru Kenyatta with the Uwezo Fund, National Government Affirmative Action Fund, William Ruto with the Hustler Fund and the Housing Fund. How much money has been wasted? How much money has actually been allocated to these funds? That is the conversation we'll be having with Dennis Kimani. And the finance bill of 2023, the hottest conversation in all settings right about now in Kenya, will be happening as well on the show. But what is the development from yesterday night's bulletin? What did you see in KUTV Kenya's 9 p.m. bulletin yesterday night, and also the developments this morning? That's what I'm bringing to you in KUTV News Updates. Don't go far. All right, this is what we have received from our reporters who've been on the field. President William Ruto has called on African leaders to establish a sustainable funding in order to accelerate infrastructure development so as to enable stimulation of trade across the continent. Ruto, who spoke yesterday at Safari Park Hotel during the opening of the African Continental Free Trade Area and the 3rd Kenya International Investment Conference, has pointed out that lack of efficient transport system remains a hindrance to investment.
President William Ruto has today welcomed all leaders and delegates to the African Private Sector Dialogue on African Continental Free Trade Area and the 3rd Kenya International Investment Conference, which commenced today morning at Safari Park Hotel, Nairobi. During the opening ceremony, Ruto urged African leaders to prioritize regional peace and security to foster a conducive environment for trade and economic growth.
Non-tariff barriers distort investment dynamics and impede competitiveness. As a result, non-tariff barriers effectively undermine or even invalidate a free trade area. This is why we must take such barriers as weak transport and logistics capacity, customs-related delays, rules of origin, import bans and export restrictions, quotas and levies, technical barriers, import permits and licenses very seriously.
The president also made a commitment to remove visa restrictions in Kenya in order to facilitate the movement of people, goods and services, thereby supporting the implementation of AfCFTA. He highlighted the importance of aligning government and private sector efforts to meet the significant demand for transportation, infrastructure, energy and ICT.
The economy, development and self-sufficiency are multi-sectoral and interconnected concerns that must be pursued through collaboration and consultation by all stakeholders in the public as well as the private sectors at the domestic, regional, as well as continental levels.
Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria has emphasized the need for collaboration between ministers of trade and finance in their respective countries. He stated that AfCFTA is a solution to socio-economic challenges and stressed the importance of increasing investment in a sustainable programs.
This morning, we are asking the private sector to step forward because it is really in your name that we do all these agreements. It is really for your own benefit that we go through all these rigorous procedures, exchanging tariff offers, looking at all the other clauses that we are looking at so that we can be able to create an environment that is conducive for you.
This conference serves as a platform for African leaders to come together and address critical issues that will drive successful implementation of AfCFTA, paving way for increased trade and property across the continent. Patrick Odwor, KUTV.
All right, now in other news, former Mungiki leader Maina Njenga was yesterday released on a 100,000 Kenyan shilling bond or a 50,000 cash bail by a Nakuru court. Njenga is facing more than 5 charges leveled against him, including being a member of an organized crime group and engaging in organized criminal activities, which he is said to have committed in May 12, 2023.
Ex-Mungiki leader Maina Njenga, accompanied by NARC Kenya Party leader Martha Karua, Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni, and his lawyer Ndegwanjiru appeared at the Nakuru Law Court to take his plea. Njenga's case has been withdrawn by the Nakuru Law Court Principal Magistrate Kipkirui Kibelion today, leading to his release at a conditional bail of 100,000 shillings with an alternative cash bail of 50,000 shillings. This is after he denied charges surrounding him. Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki has condemned the organized criminal groups and accusing some leaders of allegedly using the Mungiki sect to destabilize the government.
Must say no to political and other leaders who are inciting violence and discrediting and defiling the facilities that symbolize order and civility in our country.
Former Mungiki leader Maina Njenga has pleaded not guilty to charges surrounding him at the Nakuru Law Court today. Njenga faced multiple criminal charges, including being a member of an organized criminal group. Among other charges, he was said to have been in possession of 2 firearms, one being a homemade pistol and a Tokarev handgun, whose serial number had deliberately defaced and rolls of cannabis. The matter is to be mentioned on 20th June this year. Dorothy Musyoka, KUTV.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has issued a warning to criminal groups that the government is on the lookout for them. Gachagua, who met with leaders from the Rift Valley in Nakuru earlier yesterday, has urged heads of criminal groups to stop misusing the youth. He has also asked the police to stop taking bribes from vendors of illicit alcohol and illegal drugs and instead cooperate with the government to help end such businesses.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has warned those involving themselves with criminal groups that the government will take action against them.
I want to talk to our young people. Please, don't go that route, because the government will come in very heavily on you.
Gachagua has acknowledged that the leaders of those criminal groups misuse young people to actualize their political goals of distracting government operations. He has urged parents to advise their children to stop associating themselves with those groups. He has emphasized that the government will not allow the rebounds of criminal groups, which he says are dangerous to this society.
You occupied the highest position in this country. What else do you want? You are the richest man in this country. You literally own this country, including ourselves. What do you want? Hii watoto ya wenyewe unaambia waende wakangangana na polisi wauawe. Hii ni madharau gani kwa watoto ya watu maskini? How contemptuous are you of poor people and their children? Why are you setting young people, innocent young people, against security apparatus?
And we saw what some of these crooks and criminals were trying to do outside the DCI headquarters the other day. No country worth its salt entertains that kind of behavior.
The deputy president wants the police to join hands with the government so as to curb sale of illicit alcohol and drugs. He says that some police officers have been working in conjunction with the vendors after receiving bribes from them.
This war on illicit brews and drug abuse and other crimes will solidly be in the hands of the station commander, and the success or failure of it will be your marking scheme. And there is no station commander who has failed in one station who will be taken to lead another one.
Gachagua has urged leaders at the grassroots level to expose those selling illicit alcohol and illegal drugs, or else they will lose their jobs.
Wewe kama huwezi pigana na hii maneno, utupatie nafasi tafadhali, vijana ni wengi, officers are many, who can do the similar job. And the professor is very candid. Wanakaja, we have a problem. That is the truth. We have a problem.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua now calls for a reduction of the number of bars selling alcohol. Joseph Kess, KUTV.
Right now, elsewhere, the inclusion of people living with disabilities has been prioritized, especially in the technology era. Different organizations continue to invent assistive technologies for the disabled with the aim of easing their daily activities. In its efforts to build awareness regarding the issue of assistive technology, INABLE organized a 3-day conference in Nairobi to highlight the development and strategies to improve the availability of these assistive technologies in Africa.
Just smiling. Technological advancement is one of the key drivers in any growing economy. As the world continues to embrace technology, INABLE organization has taken its role in the society to ensure that people are not left behind. Through this year's Inclusive African Conference, the organization brought together stakeholders, innovators, sponsors, investors, as well as other organizations to highlight the issue of access to assistive technology for people living with disability. According to Steve Tawia, an investor in the organization, for solutions to be provided, there is need to invent locally depending on the needs and environment of people living with disability.
Enable to develop the spaces, maybe within schools and universities, to have what we call fab lab, fabrication labs, small design schools, and help people really to create products that are for them, right? Not imported from outside, that our solutions can be adjusted.
The founder of the INABLE organization, Irene Barry Kirika, also tells us that innovators must first understand the issues related to disability to ensure that whatever they innovate suits people living with disability, especially in technology.
you'll begin to realize how we really need to engage more people, more countries, more businesses, so that we can start coming up with solutions that really are more inclusive to everyone, especially every African. When we're talking about Africa being a mobile-first economy, we need to make sure that all the digital products that we're developing for these mobile phones are actually inclusive to persons with disabilities.
In relation to the issues of employment for the disabled, Daniel Ngugi, together with Samuel Mwiti, who are stakeholders, tells us that although there are few set strategies, implementation still remains a challenge.
There are so many policies and regulations, but now the current challenge we have is implementation. The companies are not implementing the 5% employment of persons with disability. Many stakeholders are not adapting inclusive strategies for persons with disabilities. So there's a big gap in terms of implementation.
Government has done a lot in terms of legislation. We have 5% representation of persons with disabilities, but the implementation of this policy is an uphill task because the mindset of the society believes that these people with disabilities are a burden to the organization.
Although the inclusion of people living with disability continues to be given priority in the country, there is still a need to close the technology gap to ensure that technological advancement works for everyone.
As the world continues to advocate for inclusivity among people living with disability, the Enable organization through the Inclusive Africa Conference seeks to advocate for accessibility of assistive technology among people living with disability. Ruth Wanjiru, KUTV.
Right, the cost of living. This feature by Salma Swale sheds light on the challenges faced by individuals and families as they navigate the high cost of living. It showcases their resilient spirit in the face of adversity. Let's take a look.
As one steps into the slums of Mukuru Kwanjenga, a sprawling community in Nairobi County, the struggles of its residents become As one steps into the slums of Mukuru Kwanjenga, a sprawling community in Nairobi County, the struggles of its residents become painfully evident. With limited resources and meager incomes, they are forced to confront the harsh reality of exorbitant prices for basic necessities. Fuel prices have skyrocketed, while the cost of sugar and unga has become increasingly unaffordable for the majority of households. Increased tax and levy proposals in the 2023-2024 finance bill by the government continue to worry these Kenyans, especially after the rapid increase of fuel prices, sugar prices, and even unga, as many families decry the inability to meet their needs.
Na sisi kama wajane watuangalie. Kwa hivyo vile kama mimi niko na watoto, nimeshindwa hata vile wengine waendi shule, hata kukula imekuwa ni shida. Sasa tunaomba serikali kama inawezekana watupunguzie vitu na watuangalie sisi wajane, hata kuna wengine wako na shida.
I met a woman, a greengrocer, who narrates to us how the high cost of living has affected every aspect of her daily life. For her, finding enough money to meet all her needs has been a major challenge.
Sasa tuko na shida nyingi Kenya kwa sababu kila kitu yote iko juu. Utanunua unga, utanunua mboga, ama utalipa nyumba. Sisi tuko na shida.
Due to the rapid increase of unga prices, the staple food in Kenya, many families have had to reduce their meal consumption or switch to cheaper alternatives. Responsibilities have become heavy with the burden of rent, food, and school fees weighing them down. Despite the harsh economic conditions, these residents display great resilience and creativity in their struggle to survive. A woman who runs a food business tells us that she started this business as an alternative to earn extra income despite being employed in another hotel.
Nafanya hii kazi ya hoteli. Napelekanga chakula kwa kampuni,
Sasa niliona haisaidii juu ni kidogo, mapato ni kidogo. Ndio maana niliona tu nifungue hapa nisapata ya sabuni na unga.
Addressing the issue of high cost of living requires a multi-pronged strategy involving the efforts of the government and the community as a whole. However, President William Ruto, who spoke at a joint meeting with the press on the 14th of this month, says that the imposed taxes will help the nation solve the problems it faces.
This 8% that we are adding is going to give us about 50 billion shillings. It will begin to deal with the problem of roads across the country.
However, some Kenyans, such as Eric, a resident of Mukuru Kwanjenga, hold a belief that the government has funds which are consumed by a few. Eric asks the government to fight corruption in order to stabilize the high cost of living.
Kile naweza omba serikali ya Kenya Kwanza ni kwamba pesa najua ziko, lakini shida ni kwamba ufisadi. Kitu cha kwanza wapigane na ufisadi. Kwa sababu pesa ziko lakini zinaingia kwa mifuko ya watu, na ndio maana sasa mtu kama mimi ama wananchi wengine wa chini tunazidi kuumia.
Nevertheless, economic expert Professor Fred Ogola states that there is no possibility of reducing the cost of living at this point. He encourages Kenyans to manage the expenses by prioritizing essentials.
The cost of living has been on the rise. Unfortunately for them, there is no sign it's going to reduce. In fact, it is still going to go up. Like, for example, if you look at the president said that he is now taxing 14% of the GDP, and it will slowly take us to 16% of GDP. That will mean that every commodity will go up by something like around 15 shillings. So we are seeing that the cost of living will go up anyway. And now the issue is there any person on the ground who has options?
He, however, advises the government to create employment for Kenyans in order to earn a bigger share of revenue. He laments that the government cannot ask its citizens for what it did not give.
If the president wants to change the economic model, it should be an income program, not a taxation program. How can we create jobs and put money on people's pocket? They are talking about the housing project, which is not addressing the same issue. Kibaki came with the one stroke of the pen, free primary education. When primary education became vibrant, there were a lot of business for people. People got income in their pocket, and now taxes are being paid. But this government want to tax money they have not created. They want you to pay them money which they have not given you. And the government need to understand that when money is in the hands of citizens, that money belongs to government.
The struggle for survival in the high cost of living is clearly evident, with the people living in the Kadogo economy are forced to cut off unnecessary spending to cater for the essential commodities. Salma Swala reporting for KUTV, Nairobi.
That's all we have today for you in the KUTV Rise Today news updates. Thank you very much to all the reporters and to all of the KUTV newsroom team for gathering for us those particular stories, which will be also informing with the direction of the conversation I'm having here with Dennis Kimani, the CEO, chairman, president, I don't know, many titles of the Youth Green Society. He's been on the show before speaking on matters of environment, climate change, climate action. But today, we're a bit more into the developments of the day of the Republic. The Standard, the Daily Nation, and the Business Daily is what we have with us. So if you have any other, as I always say, please send us the headlines and your response on what these stories are looking like. Don't go far. I'm coming back with him for the newspaper discussion. Right. Certified Luo boy has tuned into the show here. I'm seeing on Twitter. Interesting name. Kilu 254, amazing panel and conversations today. courtesy of Biashara Tuesday, led by Richard OKENYE. Thank you very much for that feedback. I'm taking a look at my Twitter and also where we are streaming on YouTube, KUTV Kenya Live. T. Kerry also tuning in from J-Town, mji wa J-Town along Thika Road. Now, Ruto faces taxes rebellion among Mount Kenya MPs. That's the headline on the Standard and the Daily Nation. A fund for every president, then loss of billions. The Business Daily, maybe Deno can get to tell us what is the headline on the Business Daily, Deno, as you also welcome you to the show.
Thank you, Richard. The headlines for the Daily Nation,
the Business Daily.
The Business Daily, they are saying states eye telco profits in tighter dominance roles.
Right.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard.
Right.
Always a pleasure to be in KUTV.
Introduce yourself to our first-time viewers, then we can get right into this discussion.
Morning, everyone. My name is Kimani Dennis. I'm humbled to be here this morning as we talk about what's happening in Kenya and beyond.
Right.
Yes.
President, CEO, chairman?
Yes, I'm the president, but let me call my name Chairman of Youth Green Society.
All right.
Yes.
That's great. We'll get to any new updates from the Youth Green Society later. I don't know, of the headlines that you see here this morning, which one you feel has covered the most important story of the day for you? If you are the editor, I think for me, a fund for every president, then loss of billions, is very important, or way more important as compared to what I see the Standard has prioritized. Here, Kenyans are facing so many issues: the cost of living, more tax measures, more funds being promised to common mwananchi, but there's that issue of graft which underlies each and every of this fund. And I think this is important that we see what the past audits have been saying and what kind of questions taxpayers should have, even as this cash is being dispensed by the government of the day. So a fund for every president, then loss of billions. That's the headline on the Daily Nation. Has to be my favorite headline this morning, with the three presidents' heads there, showing how much money each of them has been wasting or has wasted in the past on the various funds. We're going to get into the funds a bit later, but I don't know if you hold the same sentiment or you prefer the Standard.
I prefer the Standard. We are talking about what is happening now. This the Daily Nation, I find it to be a scam because all funds are scam.
Right.
A few of the people benefit from them, not every Kenyan.
Right.
So I think
the Standard got
it right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ruto faces taxes rebellion among Mount Kenya MPs. That's the headline of the Standard that Deno is preferring this morning, but they're not showing any picture of the MPs or Ruto, just an image of Bola Tinubu, the current or the just sworn in Nigerian president, 16th Nigerian president. But we're going to get into that in a bit. Ruto faces taxes rebellion among Mount Kenya MPs. Let's start with your favorite headline. Do you think he's facing rebellion, really?
Not really. As you see on page 4, you can see him holding a parliamentary group meeting. Obviously, this group meeting is not only for the UDA government, but you can see even the Jubilee and the Azimio team are also joining this, supporting the finance bill. So the parliamentary was, let's say it was a national. Yes.
Right.
It was a national group
meeting.
Yes, it was
Right.
a national group meeting.
Not really parliamentary. Azimio side is also looking to hold a parliamentary group meeting today, even as Raila Odinga's 6 days, what are they calling? 6-day ultimatum for the Kenya Kwanza side to address their major concerns. But again, let's shelve that a bit. We'll get into Raila's stories a bit later. Tax dilemma for Ruto in Mount Kenya as MPs dither on push for support. This is yet to be approved. What is your take? Do you think this is going to see the light of day? Come July, pay slips are going to suffer. Kenyans are going to face new tax measures. Do you think this is going to happen, or this talk of rebellion is actually going to see is going to fruition?
Thank you, Richard. It's a tough time for Kenyans. Everyone is talking about this tax finance bill, right, center, everywhere. But what I think is that the finance bill has come at the right time because the government has to raise some money. In either way, they have to present a finance bill to the parliament so that they can be able to collect finances. But my aspect is that what this type of items that they're being taxed is the talk of the town, and the country is looking on those. For Mount Kenyans, we all know that they are all saying that Mount Kenyans are the ones who are landlords. So they have to have a talk in it. So because their money is being taxed. Now we know that the bill is saying that one day after collecting all the taxes, you have to file the returns with the KRA. But Kenya is different. People have been waited for until 30th. Sitting for deposit. People are sitting on deposits for this month before they pay. So it will be a very tough thing for the landlords. And
you're saying sitting on deposit.
Yeah, people.
That's the most direct translation I've ever had here on this show.
Yes.
But yes, that's the kind of situation that Kenyans have been put into. Tough economic times, issues with landlords, and businesses as well looking to suffer. Let me read you a few of the comments from these Mount Kenya MPs. Maybe you can tell me whether indeed there are parliamentarians who feel like this is going to be oppressive for Kenyans. Actually, these are the words of Githunguri Member of Parliament Gathoni wa Muchomba, saying the bill is punitive and oppressive to the same hustler who gave us the mandate of representing him in government. Katanga MP chimes in there saying government must restore the lost trust of the public so that they get assurance that money collected will be put to good use. Mukureni Member of Parliament says, I don't understand why Wamuchomba has decided to go that route. That's a response to Wamuchomba, who says that this bill is punitive and oppressive to the same hustler. On his end, President William Ruto came out to say that he doesn't drink, he's not a madman, and he's thought through this finance bill. Looking at your Twitter account, I see you changed your username there, no finance bill.
Yes.
How do you take these statements by Kenya Kwanza members of parliament and also the president, as someone who's now opposing the finance bill in its totality?
Let me say that we are all Kenyans and we are hustlers. The bigger population in Kenya is for the hustlers. So what Mushamba is saying, I saw her video, it was trending. She literally went and asked the people, should I support the bill or should I drop it? And people were saying, we are hungry. We don't need the houses now. The sugar, 2 kgs of sugar is 880. That is one bag of cement. So I think that when you see what Kagusha is saying, he does not have anything to add to the finance bill. He just have something to respond to Mushomba. They have to remember that if they bring out this finance bill, the people who they are going to hurt is the common mwananchi. It is the hustler who gave them the votes. Why? When a landlord has to file their returns by date 6, let's say Kenyans, they pay date 5, that is the deadline. If the landlord have to file the returns by date 6, what do you expect of your house? It will be locked by date 3.
Right. So that we ensure that KRA doesn't come for me.
For the landlord.
Right.
So that you can lack somewhere to sleep and you pay up your rent. So as much as they are thinking that they are fighting the Mount Kenyans with the land rates, they are fighting the common mwananchi. The common mwananchi, the hustler who voted for them, is the one who is going to sleep in the cold. Yes.
Right, definitely. Here I see that public sector unions have also warned members of parliament to be wary of voting in the controversial finance bill of 2023. I have comments from Kenyans, but before I get to the comments and then we respond to them, Deno, let me read you some of the most pressing of these proposals in this finance bill of 2023. I have draft notes with me on key takeaways, and I had already read some of them earlier. They are also going for content creators, which is this mostly this generation of Gen Z and millennials, right? And 15% withholding tax on income earned by digital content creators. Housing fund, a deduction of 3% of an employee's basic salary towards the National Housing Development Fund, with the employer matching the employee's contribution. We saw last week PS Hinga coming out very, very panicked, according to the press conference, sweating kicking off a glass of water off that table, trying to appeal to us the importance of us contributing to this house levy or housing fund, this deduction of 3%. How do I trust, how do we trust a government which has failed to build classrooms, failed to build hospitals, to build me a house?
There is no way that you can trust a government like that. As you go back to the Daily Nation, your favorite headline, a fund
Right.
for every president, then loss of billions.
Right.
I think these funds that they're bringing up, they're all scams. Because less of the people are the ones who benefit from them. Like for the unions, we have the Steamer Circle. We have all the circles that we have. We have the KTDA circles. We have the Mwalimu Circle. Why can't the government, instead of telling these employees, bring us back the money that you are paying you so that we can do this and this for you, why can't they empower the unions? We have seen that cooperatives like Equity, they came from housing cooperatives, rose to the biggest banks in Africa. Why can't the government give these opportunities to the union that are being run by the people who are contributing this money? You cannot pay me and you want to control my money. You see?
That's
Kenyans should be allowed to use their money how they want it. It's okay for the government to help us, like the Gen Zs are saying. What you want to see on social media is finance, how to, all those things. Yes, we want to know how to control our finances, how to save, but you don't have to save for me.
Right.
When shall I learn how to save?
Right.
Yes.
You don't need to save for me.
Yes.
Just allow me to use my money as I want it. And I had a feedback here from a couple of Kenyans who've been seen on the web in response to this finance bill. Let me just read a couple of them here. Would you kindly explain the point on digital assets and the point on per diem? Let me just read that out again. 15% withholding tax on income generated by digital content creators. So this includes influencers, YouTubers, anyone who's making money online and they're being paid through those platforms. Ojwang Mariam of Way TV, once you make some money on YouTube there, they're going to take some 15% withholding tax on that income that you're going to earn on digital content creators. But on LPG and gas, LPG and fertilizer, that is inputs, are now VAT exempt. Would you say maybe that's positive, the only positive in this whole finance bill?
Yeah, that is positive. The finance bill is not as bad as we can say the whole concept of it. It's not wrong. But the aspects, like those ones for digital marketing, I urge the government to rethink. We are not saying it is bad, but let them accommodate our inputs and our insights. Because we are saying most of the youths are now millionaires. We have a lot. You can name Aziad, you can name all of them. They have come to be millionaires because of the social media, YouTubing. That is the thing that has brought them to the limelight of Millionaire Boys Club. But when we are seeing the government taking 15% of this money, it's like they are taking us back to the Mjengo, you know? Youths are running away from Mjengo, but we are going back there. Because now, if I'm working for the government, what is the essence of it? Again, we are saying this is 35 years and below. Why can they say companies that are well off to be we are not saying the government not to tax anyone, but us as youths, we are the ones who are in digital marketing. Why are we being imposed on a 15% tax? Who has that money?
Right.
I would tell me, before you make 1 million in YouTube,
how long it will take you to get that much?
Yes. How long will it take? But because the people who are near the president should advise them. I think these people are the rich youths. You know, even youths are rich. They're the rich youths who maybe they have tried YouTube, Twitter, they are still struggling or something, but they have seen a lot of people do it well, and now they are trying to cut them their money.
Right.
Because I'm against and will always be against the 15% digital tax.
Right. I remember last year, KRA said they will be monitoring social media presence and activity of Kenyans to see, ukipost kama uko Seychelles, kama uko unakula life vizuri pale Maldives, they want something from you. So maybe eventually now, the government really thinks that we do have money. So for the guys who are flaunting on social media, please pay your taxes, so that we don't have this issue of 15% withholding tax. But getting back to the Daily Nation, the headline says
before we go,
fund.
I'm asking, what does Twitter have contribute to Kenya? It is the leading digital marketer or the platform that a lot of people are in, YouTube. Can't they tax the
these
YouTube
operations
and leave the youths alone?
Right.
Yes.
That's a very good, consideration there that Deno is giving to the government. A fund for every president, then loss of billions is what they're saying. From Mwai Kibaki to Uhuru Kenyatta to William Ruto, we're being reminded not to crucify President William Ruto, that he's just doing what what his predecessors have taught him. Mwai Kibaki did the Women Enterprise Fund, the Youth Enterprise Development Fund, Land Settlement Fund, Rural Enterprise Fund, National Humanitarian Fund. And the Auditor General reported that in 2019 and 2020, the Women Enterprise Fund was still owed 3 billion, out of which 80 million was doubtful at the time. That's an interesting word to use, yeah? When money has been stolen.
Imagine.
It's doubtful.
Doubtful. They don't know where it is.
80 million is, hatuko sure sana. Iko wapi, yeah?
Yes.
When you come to Uhuru Kenyatta, Uwezo Fund, National Government Affirmative Action Fund, by June 2021, more than 4 billion reportedly lent to the Uwezo Fund to groups of women, youth, and people with disabilities remained unpaid despite the expiration of the repayment period. So 3 billion for Mwai Kibaki, 4 billion for Uhuru Kenyatta, and now we come to the Hustler government of 9 billion, which is more than double of Mwai Kibaki and double of Uhuru Kenyatta, the amount the government injected into the Hustler Fund in the first 2 months. And now we have the Housing Fund, which has been said, mtalipa mpenda msipende.
Yeah. The fund for everyone, for every president, I will still stand with it. It's not bad to bring funds to support those people who cannot support themselves. But my problem will be how the continuity of these funds. Even we saw Mwai Kibaki brought the Women Enterprise Fund. Has it continued in the Uhuru Kenyatta regime? The Uwezo Fund, is it continuing in the William Ruto regime? The problem is the continuity of these funds. Is it to lure people to vote for you for the next time so that you bring them these funds, they are happy for only 5 years, 10 years, and then you switch them to another factory resetting so that, like, let's say about the Hustler Fund, a lot of people are taking, because it came immediately after election. So people are feeling like this is a gift for me voting for William Ruto. Another one was feeling like this is a gift for all Kenyans and you can choose not to pay because a lot of people have not paid. What is the recovery method that the government put in place to recover this money?
Right.
When you see 9 billion amount of the money our president has proposed, it is almost doubling a 10-year program for the predecessor.
That is the Uwezo Fund.
The
Isn't
Uwezo
this
Fund.
the same fund in a different name? Given that Uwezo Fund is for the youth, women, and sort of the people with disabilities across the country. And the Hustler Fund is for, the youth who are the most disadvantaged economically, the women who are the mama mbogas that are often mentioned, maybe people with disability as well. These are the same funds which are maybe metamorphosizing.
Yeah, they might be the same funds, but different sources of money. Because now you find that the people who sponsored the Uwezo Fund are not the same people who
sponsored the Hustler
Fund. Because they are the friends of the president.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. That is what is happening on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. A fund for every president, then loss of billions. You can get to read much more of that as well. Maybe if we still stick with the Daily Nation here, on the right, there's the Nigerian president, Bola Tinubu, who took oath of office during his inauguration ceremony at the Eagle Square in Abuja yesterday. The 71-year-old who takes over from Muhammadu Buhari, right?
Muhammadu Buhari.
Promised to unite Africa's most populous nation and tackle insecurity.
I think that is hope for Raila Odinga. At 87 or 85 years, we still have hope.
Right.
Because we have seen that Tinubu have also tried for several times, failing, and has not stopped at 71. Now he's the president of the most populous country in Africa. Yes.
Right. So that's a sign to Raila Odinga that things can look good in the future. But what do you make of this age of African leaders. Because if you take a look at across most African countries, we have crossed the 70-year mark in most of the
15
republics,
15
right?
also presidents have 71 and above,
Could this
including the Museveni.
Yeah,
He's,
including
70.
including Museveni just right here,
Yeah.
and Mugabe, who had to be
89.
removed from power before he handed it over. Could this be a problem for Africa?
It might not be a problem, but it can be. I think the youths are, or let's say the middle ages are growing slowly. Yet the people the elders, let us call them the elders of Africa, they are still passionate of being leaders, and still feel they are not. Their time has not ended in this world to be leaders.
How will they hand over the baton? Do you think maybe we should take it up forcefully?
Yes.
That's a direct yes without a thought. Okay. All right. On page 12, Gen Z. On page 12 of the Daily Nation, and I think it was also highlighted somewhere in the Business Daily, right?
Yes.
What Gen Z is preferring to consume on social media, and also what they prefer to dress up as. In the Business Daily, they're saying Gen Zs and millennials prefer news outlets to cover social, economic issues and publish content that reflects changes in the Kenyan society. So what they generally want to see is how to make money, how to achieve financial independence, and how to save money. As I think you did mention that earlier on when we were beginning the conversation.
Yeah, you know, the Jay-Zs, most of them now are working citizens, from the millennials to the Jay-Zs, because these are people who are 18 years and above. They are people who are either in school or they have finished, they are starting their careers. So we find them, they're in a pay slip somehow, or they're getting money through this digital marketing or something. The problem comes in how to use this money. You know, I had KRG the Don telling people that the difference between a rich person and a poor person is that when you find your 10,000, when you go to a poor man's house, you'll find vitu za 20 bob, 20 bob, 20 bob, 20 bob, nyingi kwa nyumba, zimejaa kwa nyumba, but when you go to a rich person, you'll find that it's just a carpet, a screen, and a couch.
Very minimalistic setups.
Spending, you see. So I think the Gen Zs should be taught how to stay with the money in the pocket.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. And not to tax them or overtax them as the government is planning. I wanted to pick some web reactions here from the Standard. But as I do that, there was one very important thing that I wanted us also to highlight. Recently, there's been a shift in the world economy from relying heavily on the dollar, and now several countries are coming together. One is, I think, a regional bloc called BRICS, that includes even South Africa, Russia, China, to move away from the dollar and pursue other currencies, because the dollar is backed by debt, and this is globally bullish in terms of determining how other currencies are faring against the dollar. Take a look at the Kenyan shilling and the state at the moment. President William Ruto has asked that African leaders take the first step towards ditching the globally bullish US dollar by signing up to a pan-African payment system to facilitate trade within the continent. This story is there on page 2 of the Business Daily. He's asking his peers in Africa to mobilize their central banks and join this it's called the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPS, which was launched actually in January of 2022. Will this be a way to save our economy, given that now we're taking a look at so many options and it seems the government is just shooting in the dark with taxes and everything else? Could this be a way of strengthening the shilling again?
I'm happy with what the president is doing. I fell in love with the speech he put in South Africa. It was a Pan-African speech. You know that the Western countries are really bringing us behind, because we sell our things at $1, yet we have our own minerals. Gaddafi was trying to put them on task so that we can exchange with gold. It was not possible. Now we have our own Kenyan President William Samoei Ruto, who is really trying to unite the African. In South Africa, I heard him say that we should the African countries should be ready to sacrifice some of their powers to one body, let's say the AU, just like the European Union, so that when we are going to negotiate with the European Union, we don't go as Kenyan. You know, we are going to negotiate 89 countries as one country, very powerful countries, one Kenya. You see, that is a little bit not fair for a country like Kenya. His thoughts were, we should unite as African Union and have one, delegate powers to one person who will be the chairman of AU, so that when Kenya needs anything from the European Union, not the president is going. He's sending the AU president so that they can negotiate on a similar basis. And that I found it very, very good because...
But you know, while we speak on that though, hasn't there been an African Union, and are we saying it has failed? Do we need a new African Union, or what exactly is
what the president said, it has not failed. The AU is there, but African countries are still remaining or refusing or
being individual.
They are so much individual, they don't want to delegate some powers to the African Union.
All right,
you
I
get
see.
So we want to stay with all our economic powers. We don't want to delegate, so that when you are going to the AU for any economic decisions or partnerships, we are going as one. That is how this power, that's why he was saying now, if I have some trade powers, please let us take them to the AU. The AU is there, but it has no powers.
Okay, all right. I see also here, as we close up on this conversation, Kenya to scrap visa fees for African traders. So President William Ruto has announced plans to remove visa requirements for African nationals who are traveling to Kenya for business as a first major step to remove barriers in this intra-Africa trade. Let me just read what he said. My Minister for Trade, who's Moses Kuria, has informed me that somehow some of our officials made you pay visa. So he was addressing these private sector leaders who were attending a forum in Nairobi. And you know, he was speaking on these visa requirements where some of these officials have to pay, of course, once they land in Kenya. And he apologized, you know, saying that I have been told some of our officials made you pay visas to come home and asked me to apologize, which I do. When one comes home, they don't pay to come home. He told the forum that. So he's requiring that, he's giving a proposal that he has plans actually to remove visa requirements for any African national who's coming to Kenya to do business for business purposes. Is this a good move or is this also the way towards you know, creating that strong African Union, as you mentioned there? And do you think this is going to be reciprocated by other countries?
That is a good question. Actually, yesterday I was having a conversation with some people. Why Kenyans are we so friendly that we can allow everyone to come to Kenya, but when we go to their countries, it is so hard.
It is a very long process.
Yes. Let's take an example. Isili. Now the rich people, they are not willing to employ any Kenyan because, like people who were mamas who go and do laundry at Isili, they were asking, Kenyan women ask for 1,000 for laundry. But now Ugandans, Burundi, these people are asking as less as 300 shillings. You see, as far as we are bringing people into Kenya, let them come, but should not reduce the prices of commodities or even the services that Kenyans give. Because a lot of people are going for cheap labor from these people who are coming to Kenya, and Kenyans remain without jobs, jobless. So for the visa is okay. Even I had Dangote, I was telling you before we start the show, Dangote was saying that it is okay for Europeans and the whites to come to Kenya and have a visa on arrival. But it is not okay for African to come to your country without a visa.
It is sort of reverse racism. It's black against black.
Black against black. So I think the AU, as the president was saying, they have a lot of things to do to streamline and to bring it together. We have to do something.
There's a lot to be done there. And a lot is also to be done home if we're talking about traveling. A passport printer has broken down again at Nyayo House. This is after one of the printers already broke down and it took more than 2 months to repair it. So if you're planning to travel and are waiting for a passport, you might be waiting a bit longer. Printer
Printer.
I don't think I have a comment. 300,000, the backlog of passports, which is awaiting printing. And this is a republic that is allocating 9 billion to Hustler Fund and other, activities. But we can't afford a printer. They know.
We can afford a printer, but I think it is lenient and ignorance, because before it breaks down, it has already sent signs. When they are printing the passport, maybe one stopped on the way, or it printed back.
How is this national news? A printer breaking down at now. So I thought that's something it breaks and get fixed the next day.
So, Kenyans are traveling day in, day out. People are, even now, JKI is full. People want to go out of the country. So this is a national...
People want to go away from the country.
Yes. So that is not a good sign for the, what do we call this, for the embassies, even for the Nyayo.
Or are they trying to limit the amount of Kenyans who are living the dire situation in the Republic?
But they're going to look for
greener pastures. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Just let's close it up there. Maybe if you have one story that I've forgotten, but just to close up that as I hand it over to you, there's Kisangani Nasimiyu, who's a resident of Tongaren. You can read it in page 17, an opinion piece there saying, "Let us hold demos every single day. It is the only option we have and the language the government truly understands." Any response to that, Deno?
Not anymore, because we are seeing we have a government that will just tell you go to the roads if you want. But now that the bipartisan talks have brought to a halt, it has been a push and pull. Kenya Kwanza is bringing Kenan, who is a Jubilee, into the bipartisan. It is stopping again. They are not talking now. They are saying the committees, the council that was put in place for the bipartisan, they are not coming into negotiation. So let Kenyans expect maandamano to be back.
All right. Yeah. Deep State Mkenya halisi anasema hivi on the housing fund levy. The government is proposing that if you don't want to be built a house, this is going to be your savings. We'll return them to you after 7 years, but we're going to tax it, but you're going to get back your savings. So Deep State Mkenya mhalisi anauliza, you are helping me save what money?
Yes,
that is a question from a Kenyan. You're helping him save, but what money is it that you want him to save?
The problem with the PS for Hinga is not clear with Kenyans. How can a housing fund turn into a savings plan? Okay. They have to be true with Kenyans. If you want to save so that you can redeem your money in 7 years, use the Hustler Fund, because the Hustler Fund is not for borrowing only. You can deposit for saving. So let us be straight with Kenyans. If it is that's what I'm telling you.
They want us to save in every fund.
In every fund, they want us to save. And this money, we don't know how we can access it, or even that's why it will turn out to be a scam. Because how can we account for this money? What has we done? Because let's be business people. It's on a business Tuesday here at KUTV. If you put 30 million into a government account, will that money stay there?
No, it won't.
It won't. It will do an investment. This investment that will be done, how will Kenya benefit? Those are the things that those
are the pertinent questions that need to be asked.
They need to be answered by the government. We have saved. I have saved, let's say, 100,000 for myself. Am I getting any interest? Because I have given you money, I could have taken that money elsewhere. I could have put a small shop that I get 5 shillings or so. But I've decided to give you my money. So, hakuna chaburi.
Yeah.
If I give you some money, I expect some interest for that money, because obviously you are going to invest.
Right. The government is tired of trying to tax us. They now want to direct how we use our money.
Yes.
That's quite unfortunate. Last word, Deno, here on the back of the Business Daily. And if there's any story I have left out, you can.
We have left out the story on the DGs, devolution.
The deputy governors who are being...
governors.
Right. Is devolution failing now, as we are seeing so many cases? Politics in counties, medical interns have not been paid for 5 months now, and healthcare was devolved.
I think the County Government Act and the Constitution of Kenya was very clear when it came up with the devolution and provision of the county governments. Actually, the previous regime had a lot of problem because it was dispensing things that they didn't know what was going on, because we are coming straight from the 2010 constitution direct to the election 2013, and so people were divided. How is devolution going to work? That's why we saw a lot of leaders running to senatorial. They didn't know the money was in the governor.
That's right.
Right. So I think the devolution is a little bit going down, because in the previous government we saw that we had a ministry on devolution. Now we are seeing they are trying also to bring back health into the national, to the national government. We are seeing the DPs, the DGs and the governors, they are loggerheads. Why? Because in the constitution says that the DG is just someone who will be there when the governor is not there. You see,
so they have no role really.
They have no role. It is they do what the governor tells them to do. They have no stipulated laws that this is what a DG should be doing. This is what should be done. Actually, even it reflects to the deputy president
as well.
I even find it so hard that even his simple funds were taken to the chief cabinet secretary, Musalia Mudavadi, because a deputy president is just a helper of the president. You are there when the president is not there. So I think going forward, the parliament has a lot of things to do.
Right. Okay. So that's it. I saw a video of a high school student in a debate somewhere speaking of devolution. And the last statement was, there's hell in hello and there's devil in devolution. So that's something to think about as we close up this newspaper review section with Dennis Kimwani, the chairman, president of Youth Green Society. Last word from you here, Bwana Dennis.
Last word is, as we continue.
With here at the back of the Business Daily as well.
Museveni signs anti-LGBTQ law amid global outcry.
Right. And on the right there, there's also a quote that we'd like to close up with.
To have a right to do a thing is not at all the same as to be right in doing it. Gilbert K. Chesterton.
Right. To have a right to do a thing is not the same as
to be right in doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Think about that. Thank you very much, Deno.
Asante.
I'm glad to have had you here on the show again.
Always my pleasure.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to see your feedback and then come back to close it up. Biashara Tuesday has been live on air since 7 in the morning. It's almost 10 a.m. I am so glad that you guys have been able to tune in on all the social platforms, giving me feedback and also following up on the conversations of the day. They'll be there on YouTube, so you can enjoy episodes from this show, from previous shows as well. Most of them technology, some of them politics, and most of them, again, business. So those are the conversations that always happen here every single Tuesday. If you tuned in for the first time, this show comes back again next week on Tuesday. On Monday, KUTV Rise Today has Karen Blessing on Art and Culture Monday. That's an exciting show that you shouldn't miss out before we come back to matters of business. I have seen that we've been on YouTube live on KUTV Kenya. So for the guys who've been tuning in, like Jesse Kimotho, who says he's enjoying the newspaper review, I agree with Dennis on the trickle-down effect of this extreme tax collection measures. Adenik saying Kenya is still in debt, so how are we supposed to pay that? This increase in tax was expected since we can't really develop as a country if we still have debts to pay. Adenik again saying it's not efficient for the average Kenyan, but oh well, right? Being a Kenyan is a job in itself. Yeah. So from now on, let's focus on our job of being Kenyans, and hopefully the situation does turn around. I'll be back here with much more of business, and as I always say, follow me on social media and interact with me at Richard_Okenye. If you want to have breakfast in bed, try sleeping in the kitchen.
Maji